I will go ahead and call the meeting to order and would at 5:35 p.m. and would take a motion on the agenda.
Just a motion to approve?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I move to approve.
I second that.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes unanimously. First item on our agenda is the minutes. Any would welcome a motion on the minutes.
So moved.
Seconded
Second.
by Karen. Sorry, I'm not doing the names as usual, I hope.
It's okay.
And I'll do better. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Actually, I shouldn't vote since I wasn't there.
Great. So we've got one abstain and otherwise unanimous. And then we'll move straight into the public forum. Did anybody sign up for public forum?
Not receive any
Freeman
emails.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Sorry.
Discussion ordered.
Great. Sorry, did I hear you say no, Shannon? Sorry.
Sorry, yes, no, I did not receive any requests for public comment tonight.
Great. Awesome. And it doesn't look like anybody's got their hand raised or even like we have any attendees other than Chief Murad and Director Green and Town Meeting TV. But if somebody pops in, we can always let them speak. But we'll move on to item number 4, which is committee actions. And under committee actions, we have in our, not in public content, but in our executive content, we have 3 proposals for review. And I guess my first question is just if folks had a chance to review this beforehand and if everybody feels ready to vote or to not vote on it, but I guess to go through their scoring sheets, or if folks still need a bit of time.
So I didn't see a scoring sheet. Is it available anywhere?
Yeah, so if you refresh, Shannon did post it now.
Okay.
So it will be up now.
Okay.
But yeah, so the scoring sheet is up
I
now.
just found it. Okay.
And how are people feeling on the proposals themselves?
I've had time to review them and I feel okay with discussing them. And Stephanie, I'm sorry for not sending you the score document on that. My bad.
No worries.
So can I ask a question? I'm just going to ask it rather than being in the dark. Professor Seguino, are you on the committee now?
I'm going to defer to Chair Gamache about that.
As far as I'm concerned, yes, I believe. After I did not watch the city council meeting on Monday, but I was informed that she was in, and yeah. So,
are you a police commissioner? I'm sorry. Is that what I missed? And I'm lunch.
Right.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah, I missed that fundamental piece of information.
Sorry, I did not clarify. I assumed everybody watches all of our city council meetings early.
I usually do. Yeah, forgive me. I actually do. Okay, sorry.
So I don't want to rush folks. So I'm wondering how people feel about taking a recess to review the proposals.
Sorry, could you remind me, where was the scoring sheet posted? Is it on board docs? Because I don't see it.
Yeah, you'd have to refresh it because Shannon just posted it. So if you open the page before she posted it, then it wouldn't necessarily show up.
Right. I had refreshed it after you said that, but I'll refresh it again.
Randall, I also emailed it out like, I don't know, an hour ago. It's attached to an email to the whole group. And I'm sorry, Professor Seguino, were you on that email? Just so I know if you've been, oh, you haven't been added yet. Okay.
I got the scoring sheet today in an email. So that must have come from you, Shireen?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have not used that document yet. I've reviewed all the RFPs, but I didn't use the scoring sheet. So you're asking Zeroya, chairperson, Counselor Hightower, no, I get it right. If we want to recess and do the score sheet and process through it and then come back?
Yes.
I
And
would need to do that to do this. If you want us all to use the score sheet, I would need to do that. I don't know.
okay, so are folks okay if we recess for a bit and people take time to fill out the scoring sheet, and then we can maybe kind of tally up the results basically and get a ranking of the on the technical component, get a ranking of the organizations. Shireen.
Yeah, the question I have, not having done this process before, do we not talk about them by name and do we assign them numbers? How does that discussion take place when we do? Should we be all of us assigning them the same number for purposes of our review and reference to them? What do you recommend?
I will let Joy answer that, having never done this as part of a public meeting.
Right.
Also, I've never done this as part of a public meeting. I think this is kind of a new event. I think I like the idea of assigning numbers. If you want to do that, do it that way. I think that would be fine. Generally, responses to requests for proposals, once there's a decision made, do become public documents. So I think it would be better to assign numbers, but if you prefer not to do that for ease, I don't think there's a big issue around that.
I mean, I think it's okay to, and let me know if you think this isn't true, but I think it's okay to at least name who submitted a proposal. That is can be public knowledge, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so when you're talking about numbering them, is that because we don't necessarily want to know who got first, second, and third in terms of the technical proposal? But I mean, that would be, even as someone who writes RFPs, that could even be something that we share with folks, is where they landed in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably for that purpose, it would be good to assign numbers for the ultimate scoring. I think score sheets have been something that generally have been not as public as the responses, so.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense to me. I see. So I would say so it sounds like for discussion we can have it, but I would, just in terms of them coming in and there not being confusion on who it is, the score sheets won't be made public. So if we can have either Shannon and I could tally those, and I will also say I won't be submitting any scores because I've worked with one of the consultants and I think I could easily be biased towards them. So I won't be submitting a score, and then in the end discussion, I won't be participating. So so Shannon or I could tally the scores when they come in, and then assign them numbers and email that out, I guess. Is that okay? So that folks can't see it? Okay, so in your score sheets, you can name them by name, but then when we put it out, I think that makes sense because we won't share the score sheets. Okay, so do people want a 30-minute recess to review the proposals and score them?
I'd be happy to do so in less than 30, but I'm happy to do 30 also if you want to do 30.
Yeah, I'm trying to give a buffer for anyone who doesn't want to admit that they maybe haven't had a chance to look at the proposals yet.
30 minutes then.
Does everybody have, I'm sorry, does everybody have the scoring sheet now? Everybody does? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and admit that I do not see it in my email. Did it come from you, Shireen?
Yeah, but I'll just resend it to you.
Okay.
So at least with me, all the emails that go through the mailing list end up in my junk mailbox. So it might be
Okay,
there
that's
as
what
well.
happens. Okay.
I was going
Yeah.
to say the same exact thing.
It's same here.
Why?
So it is easier for me when
All of your
emails go
emails
out.
that go to the one organization that you're part of for that
Right.
email.
Well, right. I mean, it's the ones which are sent individually to individual email addresses go through fine, but when they're sent to that distribution list, end up in the junk mailbox.
That's fine. Okay, so hopefully folks, and we can stay on, and people can pipe up if they just have a point of order. But other than that, we will recess until 6:15.
I'm just have someone make a motion to
Oh, sorry. Yeah, my bad.
So just go ahead.
I'm sorry. I motion that we recess till 6:15.
Second that motion.
Motion made by Councillor Gamache. I ask every time, and seconded by Commissioner Durfee. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And that passes unanimously, and we will come back at 6:15. And as you finish, feel free to send them to Shannon and I. Us now at 6:30, and I'm sorry that took an extra 15 minutes. What I will quickly do is I'll email with Audrey and Shannon to make sure that we got the right thing. And then we'll send you all the scores with the name of the company, the technical score, and a reminder of the cost. And if y'all can just not refer to the cost by number, so don't actually say the number of what the end result was of the proposal. And yeah, then I will let you all discuss, because I do think it's discussion worthy. So Audrey, how are you coming with?
I have a few more here to do. I think they rolled in a little bit later and I'm having trouble opening one of the documents, but I was just curious actually how you're proceeding with a couple of commissioners opted not to rate the references in terms of, and I was understandably.
Yeah, I just skipped that because I figured, and Stephanie can tell me if this is completely crazy, but it'll end up evening, because if they didn't score it, they didn't score it across all three. So in terms of I summed up the scores that people got.
That's true.
So that ended up just not mattering.
Makes sense to me.
Okay. Okay. Then I will send what the scorings that I got for everyone, so you can start discussing if you want, but also know that people are double checking in the back.
And so is there seven commissioners and counselors? Is that, I just want to make sure I have everybody. Is that how many you have too? Okay,
That is
perfect.
what I have. Okay, so I'm sending everyone the summary of the results now. So make sure you check in your junk box, and it has what you should refer to the firm as well as the totaled up score and the cost. And that should get you all started on discussion, and then we will confirm if those numbers are right.
Soraya, did you say you emailed that to us?
Yes, but I just pressed send, so.
Oh, okay, good. That was a little fast.
Wow, that just went right in my junk box. That's just where all your emails have been going. That's awful.
Yay, we found them.
Zoe, my apologies, but I didn't get it and it's not in my junk box.
Oh, right. I didn't send it to you directly,
Okay.
which I think I have to do because you're not on the list yet. So I will forward that.
I'm also not seeing it, but maybe it just didn't get in. It didn't come into my inbox yet. Is that possible?
Stephanie, if you go to, is that you, Stephanie, that's talking?
No, it's Perry.
Perry's not on the email.
Correct. I just sent it to the police coach. That was my bad. So we'll forward it to Stephanie and Perry.
No problem.
Or if somebody else can forward it to Stephanie and Perry.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perry and
This has to be the most unusual meeting.
you know what? Want to make it even worse? Perry, I just sent that to you. Stephanie, I don't have your email.
It's just my name, stephanie.seguino@uvm.edu.
Oh, you're not using a city email.
Not yet. I haven't got one yet.
Right.
So while we're waiting, can I ask a question about this process, since it's not something I typically get involved in? Is there a fault? Is the reference portion in RFPs? Is there ever a checking with references portion, or is that really just part of the proposal itself? But there isn't like a before we might select our favorite. Is there typically then you call some references for input, or is that just there as part of the written document?
So at this point, one, I would say that it's up to you, and I'll let Joy answer as well. But given that two of the scores were pretty close, their cost is a little different, but their scores are pretty close. If the committee wanted to, and after I say this, I'll pass the gavel to Shireen. If the committee wanted to pause to make the final decision to contact those references, that's definitely a direction that they could go, or is my understanding. Joy, what do you?
I think that would be fine. One thing that I would just like to keep on everyone's radar is timing, because this is ultimately going to need city council approval. If it ends up stretching out over a long amount of time, that the timing of meetings might become an issue into getting it done. But
right, thank you. One good thing is we are meeting on Monday. Yeah, so that's good.
But that would give a short amount of time to get back from references.
Right.
I still haven't got it.
I know, and it's because for some reason it bounced back to me. I asked Randall. Randall might have your email address.
Yeah, Randall does.
I texted him and asked him to forward it. Sorry.
I will forward on that email happily.
Thank you.
There it is. Thank you.
I know where you both work, so you must have.
So Stephanie, you did get it?
Yep, I did. Thank you.
So I just have questions, but I can wait.
Okay. I'm going to pass the gavel to you. Is that okay?
Okay. So, and the reason for that is because, as Zariah said, the chair said she's recusing herself from this discussion. So one of the things I wanted to ask as we get started is there a category that was similar to distinguish proposals A and B, or were the ratings all over the map in terms of, I just wasn't sure if there was something obvious that bumped B over A.
Like, what is the breakdown?
I can answer that if you're okay with not waiting for Audrey to confirm that she got the same scores. And then RFPA had total scores of, got a quick sum column. Okay, so we're just comparing A and B right now. So B scored, yeah, they're kind of all over the place.
Okay.
Oh, I guess not. So B scored significantly better in the first part. It was, I can just send, maybe I shouldn't, I guess I should keep this open. So firm A, if you want to write it down, had, the first score was 3.8. Then it was 3.05. Then it was 3.2. Then 4. Then 4. And this isn't actually representative of what we think the score is because 2 commissioners didn't score it, but the additive score was 1.3 on references, which it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And then for B, for RFP B, it was 4.4, 3, 2.85, 4.3, 3.7, and 1.4.
Okay, thank you. And did any commissioners want that same breakdown for the third, for C?
Doesn't look like it was necessary.
Right. Okay, so I'm just going to open the floor to any discussion on this, if anyone has any questions or wants to discuss. Or if they have proposal for how we go about discussing this. Anyone? Commissioner Durfee?
This might be more of a question, but I know that we're leaving some information out. I guess, first of all, here comes my dog, right? My question is, should we confine the discussion to the 2? Do we need to bring in 3? Or are we just going to talk about the 2?
Yeah,
go ahead.
You raise a good question. So I was going to ask, are folks comfortable saying that this is a discussion only about A and B? In other words,
I'm so sorry. My cat turned on my music.
This is a great meeting tonight. I love it. So how do folks feel about removing proposal C from our discussion? I'm not suggesting that one way or the other, but just seeing what the gauging folks' thoughts on that.
I think it would be good to just leave it open-ended, just because I don't want someone to feel like they can't. Like, say one person really, that was their top choice. That's just my preference, but if other people feel like we should just limit it to the top 2, that's fine too. But I guess I'm just curious to hear what people's thoughts are, since we haven't really deliberated or discussed it at all yet.
Commissioner Durfee?
I was just looking at the math. It scored significantly lower, but I would agree that if there's any conversation on it, maybe we should entertain that first and then move on to comparing the A and B.
Sure. Yeah, so if anyone has any feedback they want to share about any of those, I think we're just going to have an open discussion at this point.
Can I just ask to what end are we discussing? So, I mean, is the intention that after the discussion we take a vote among the 3, or is the intention merely just that we kind of have any questions that we have answered, or so we have a score right now. Right? I'm not entirely sure what the method was, but we have a score. So it seems like it might not be necessary to take a second subsequent vote, since we essentially kind of already have that. But it might be that the result of the discussion either sways people's minds or makes them want to vote differently. So I'm just not sure what the discussion is that we're doing right now.
Well, I think what we could decide is at the end of this discussion, do we entertain a motion that this result guides, whether this result should guide how we how we make this decision? we could have a motion to begin with, and then we could have discussion. However it is, I'll confess that this is new to me, so maybe it's not ideal to have me chairing this discussion.
If I can, and again, I don't want to give any substantive input, but I feel like I can. So I think what we put in the RFP into the general accepted way to do this is to go by best value. And so because the highest scorer it would be a hard argument for say that the lowest score and the highest cost would be the best value. So you can discuss that, but you'd have to, I think, change some things. But if I did all the math correctly, then you do have one higher score for a higher score for a higher price, and then you have a slightly lower score for a slightly lower price. And so talking about which ones we want to go with, or what the next steps are for deciding what the committee's pleasure is, I think would be
right.
Would be your charge for this discussion.
And maybe the city councilors can remind us whether there was or anyone did we get a budget for this?
You did not get a budget for this, or I said we did not get a budget for this, but it's coming out of the $250,000 that were set aside for transformation. So I'm not sure how much of that the administration has used. I don't know that anybody on the call does, but I would say either one of the proposals would probably be within budget. It's hard to say what the council would do, but it seems reasonable given the.
Is that out of Taisha Green? Taisha's on the call. Am I pronouncing Taisha's name correctly? 1, and 2, is that her budget? Because she is listening in or observing.
I'm not sure that it is, but if we could promote her, that would be helpful. She might also have more insight into it.
And I don't want to put her on the spot. But if she wants to, maybe she can raise her hand if she wants. No, I no longer.
Oh, maybe she's appropriations resolution. It looks like it's a separate fund.
A separate fund. Okay.
Sorry, what is the question?
Sorry to put you on the spot, Taisha. I wanted to make sure that we weren't playing with your funds, right? That we weren't making decisions that were, but it doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, there's an additional fund of $250,000 that is for police transformation. And I believe you're discussing a facilitator, and that will come out of that fund, not the racial equity, inclusion, and belonging budget.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but it's helpful to know where the funds are coming from and how we're doing this. So thank you.
No problem. It's okay.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion at this point? So, for example, the fact that we have two.
Sorry, just one point of order. Audrey just confirmed that she got the same scores that I got. So
thank you. So we have two very close scores with a difference in price that can be anywhere from up to 2 to 3 times as much. It depends on the range. I don't know if folks want to talk about that at all, or why they might feel, whether anyone wants to advocate for one of these, A or B or C over the other, but now would be the time.
I think it would be helpful to hear from everybody about, their sense of the proposal that got the highest score and what they think the merits are and why they didn't choose the other two. And, my sense is that giving quantitative scores is kind of hard, and we would benefit from the discussion, and we might then go back and revisit whether we want to stick with our rank ordering of the proposals.
Yeah. Commissioner Seguino, do you want to speak to that, or do you want to listen at this point? If you want to weigh in, I welcome your input.
Yeah, being the newbie, I'm hesitant to go first, but I'll wait, and then I'll add some things after I hear from the others.
Would anyone like to speak to their choices? Commissioner Durfee.
So Councillor Freeman had said this, and it's the one that was way at the bottom was my first choice. So I think I can talk a little bit about why. I just felt, and it could be perception or experience, but I just felt overall it was more. I thought the work was professionally done. I liked some of the answers. I'm conscious of my own bias and my own experience, but I had a very close second, and it was number one. So that doesn't really help or add to the discussion in terms of why, the one that is not being discussed, particularly, I felt like the ability to synthesize the information, and those specific. If I can be more specific, because I'm not looking at the document because I don't have it. It just seemed like it would be the information synthesis was a big one for me. How the information is going to be handled, but they did seem just from my own bias that they were a little lofty around community, and so I didn't feel really great about that. I felt like they were maybe at 40,000 feet where we really want people to be on the ground. And then, of course, the one ranking number A or letter A really felt more to me. That was the area, I think, in all of them where I was really paying attention. And I think that really was my focus was, if this is supposed to be a process where we're not just hiring another consultant or, something that maybe many of us have experienced in our professional careers, that it should be somebody who's really sort of getting at that community piece, which was important to everyone on this call. And then also I felt like the overall approach to the one that rose to the top was by far felt and resonated with me, that the overview was really where it needs to be.
Anyone else want to weigh in?
Yeah, I would say for myself, C didn't speak to me at all. I'm actually very surprised that they got rated that high, but I trying to find the page. So what I was really looking for was, and what I felt A and B did a better job of presenting and seemed to me have far more experience, was understanding the need to address the various communities that we want to reach. I don't think C really, C barely touched that. I thought that A, what struck me the most, I might say I favor B a little bit more over A, but I did like one area of A, I just can't find the page, where they talk specifically, and it's something that we've raised before. We are in this environment where everything is over Zoom or WebEx or whatever people are choosing to use. What do we do about people that don't have that access to the technology or consistent quality of technology? And we would have a need possibly of having meetings in person that are done in a safe manner. And they clearly addressed that in one section of their proposal. So that really stood out to me.
I think for this section, Commissioner Grant was talking about how one of the individuals lived in Boston. Does that ring a bell? And could come, that could that might make it easier for them to actually come here and do some in person. I did notice that too. Councillor Freeman?
Yeah, so I also was really going back and forth between A and B. I think I had a initial like off the cuff interest in B. And that might be, again, just bias around like presentation and sort of format, which is not necessarily the most, but just like the way that the information was presented, just sort of, I was drawn to it. I think that, and I'm trying to figure out, so the team for the consultant for B, I think is quite larger. And I'm just trying to figure out if they were going to make a selection out of that, like a predetermined, or if they were essentially going to have, I'm looking back through the proposal again. Does anyone know?
I thought they spoke to the specific team that they were contemplating.
That there were specific folks. So the one thing, and I don't know if this is worth like exactly how to fit this into everything, but so one of the things they did mention in the consultant B was the fact that I think the overall in their entire team, there's like they speak over like at least 9 languages. And I think that's just something I'm wondering in this process going forward is how, and I feel like Commissioner Grant, like the aspect about like what consultant A was mentioning around like virtual meetings versus like other ways of being able to engage with folks in the community, like that aspect I think is really important to this, and how do you be as inclusive as possible. And so though I looked through like the backgrounds of at least all the folks that were listed and the languages spoken on their website, and it wasn't exactly a one-to-one, I think because they're a West Coast based group and so there was a little bit in terms of like the difference in the communities and the primary languages being spoken, but that's just something that I think about, and I don't know if that's partially why the B group appealed to me just a little bit more. I feel like the proposal was just really detailed as well. I felt like, I don't know, I'm curious to hear people who really liked A and what it is about that, because I feel like I'm kind of like, I feel like I could be pulled one way or the other based on what other people's perception are and the things that they sort of saw and valued and or like jumped out at them in those proposals. So I'm curious to hear. The one other thing I think I'll say is that I think, if I'm correct, the consultant for the A is the only group that doesn't have any background, anyone in the actual consulting firm who doesn't have a background, direct experience in law enforcement. Is that correct? Did I read those proposals correctly?
I didn't notice anything with them, and I noticed that C had more background. Yeah. To be honest, I didn't notice it in B, but I didn't, that doesn't mean anything. If you noticed it in B, then. Yeah. I think there was at least one person in the consulting firm that had in B, or at least 2 that had some, which I think, in C, if it seemed like it was sort of like an overwhelming presence. And I think that to me didn't seem like the right fit for the project that we're doing. And I'm just curious if other people flag that at all and what their perspective is on that in terms of A and B, which I think will end up being the ones that we end up deciding between. Does anyone want to speak to that? I personally had put A over B. What I was really impressed with in A was the commitment and the, I don't want to say detail, but the thought they gave to soliciting feedback from historically underrepresented groups. Or I thought that the detail that they focused on was there, and certainly in our RFP, that was a fair amount of what we were focused on, was how do we get this feedback? And I liked their recognition that we were focused on the community and not just the BPD, but what we're looking for in the community as a whole. So that was what drew me to A, and I invite others to speak to what, how did they make their decision? What was, if they liked A or B, and what was the deciding factor for them? Commissioner Seguino, and then Commissioner Gamache.
Just to refer to the proposal C, I also felt that they didn't really have a sufficient focus on community. It felt like a much more corporate proposal. They declined the request that the materials generated from this project be owned by the city. And I think it's because they tend to be more academically oriented. So I think they weren't convincing in terms of their ability to reach the broad swath of people we want to reach in the city. I rank B over A. They're very close for me. I think very, very close, but just a couple of things. I think that B's proposal was more professionally done and written. I think that probably matters, but I'm an academic, so I'll, that's just how I come at these things. I also appreciated the fact that it was a larger team and a very diverse team, and we have to really be, conscious of the ability of any firm that's hired to reach the new American community, and so I felt that was important. They did have criminal justice backgrounds that those in Proposal A did not have. So those were the really two primary reasons that I chose B over A. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Commissioner Gamache?
And so my scoring for all three, they were all fairly close. I did have A over B, and why I had that, what I appreciated in Proposal A, it's on page 12 for centering marginalized voices. They had one of the team members here has a lot of experience working with small immigrant communities. I think that speaks well to our community here. But with that said, though, I did appreciate the size of the team on B in the diversity that was on B. So between those ones, I'm slightly leaning towards A, but I'd honestly be happy with either A or B going through. So,
thank you. Anyone else like to weigh in or share their thoughts? Commissioner Harp, I can't help but comment on how quiet you're being. I would love to get your input.
Oh, not intentionally. I like meetings to be as efficient as possible. I'm not going to try to convince anybody about my relative rankings about the three. I'll just say of the two that we're considering, A and B, I have a pretty strong preference for B. That's in part because, as Commissioner Seguino said, I think it was more professionally done. There was some discussions, and I think there was a lot of vagueness in A about exactly what the methods were, how they're going to be used. There was a kind of proprietary method of eliciting participation, which would be difficult to explain exactly how that was going to work, right? But I just thought that as far as clarity, conceptual clarity, I thought that B was significantly stronger than A. So my preference between those two is B.
Thank you. So I think we have heard from everyone, except for Commissioner Counselor Hightower, recused herself. Does anyone have a proposal for how we want to move forward if folks feel like we have enough information to make a selection tonight? I mean, one of the other options is if we felt like we needed to extend the deadline to get more, that is one option to talk about. But if we're comfortable with what's on the table, Commissioner Harp.
So thank you. Given that, just based on the numbers, given that there are kind of two relatively close competitors and a third which is rather far behind, my suggestion would be either that we simply take a vote between the two competitors, or that someone entertain a motion for one of them, and then that gets voted up or down. You have to go either way.
Okay. Commissioner Durfee?
Sorry, I keep muting myself. I agree, and I think I just want to mention that it's, why we're here is because this needs to get done. So I would lean towards trying to make a decision since, as soon as possible.
Commissioner Seguino, were you going to say something?
I mean, formally, you might just have a motion to eliminate proposal C. And I think it might be best to simply have a vote between A and B with the largest number getting.
Okay, I am
proposal.
happy to entertain a motion at this point.
Sorry, I just have one quick question. Does anybody know Commissioner Herjacq or Councillor Polino's thoughts on either three on these three proposals? Seeing some head shakes. No.
I can text Franklin right now.
I don't think that he's looked at the proposals, so I don't know that he would have an opinion.
And I have not connected with you all personally.
No doubt. We are meeting on Monday, correct? I mean, I'm happy to vote on this now. I wouldn't mind getting their inputs on this as well, but I'm also, with that being said, I have no problem voting right now.
Are all 10 of us going to be on there on Monday?
I will not.
Okay.
Commissioner Seguino?
It might be useful, if we do vote on A and B, that it be contingent upon positive references. I mean, I think we need to make a couple of phone calls to ensure that we're making the right decision. So I think I don't think it's a big deal, but I think the motion should be contingent upon that.
Right, just some due diligence, in other words. It can be even beyond references, but doing our own work. Yeah. Councillor Freeman?
This is my first time doing the reviewing an RFP proposal and approving it. Is there any way to have like a back and forth, like to have follow-up questions to folks who've like, if you have questions about the proposal, am I just like supposed to reach out to them independently and just like call them? Like, I've never done this before. Like, what's the process?
Yeah, those are good questions. Because I would feel the same way. I would have some follow-up questions. I mean, I'd be curious as to what the expectation is for how they would go about, studying Burlington. How often would they come to Burlington? I think that's really important because so much of this, I feel, is mingling with the community, mingling with certain businesses too. I mean, when I take a look at where I live in the Old North End, there are a number of businesses that could be very, very helpful. Just once again, being completely electronic may not work the best in all areas, but getting surveys in certain businesses could be something that's worth looking at. So I do agree with following up on references. And if we can ask some additional questions and get some answers on, I think that'd be very helpful. I think we could get rid of the third one. I think it sounds like we're all agreeing that the third one would not be the best choice for Burlington. So I would just say those things. Thank you.
Sorry to quickly, I wanted to flag that in your inbox, I sent an email on some updated scores if we used a median score of 3 instead of a median score of 0, just in case. Audrey had sent me that and I didn't know if that changed things for folks, so I wanted to share it. And then to the question on if you can ask follow-up questions, I would not do it as an individual commissioner. I'll let Joy speak more to that, but there is, again, I don't know what the city calls it, but there's a process of basically asking for best and final offers where you can ask people clarifying questions if you're saying you're, in the top 2 proposals, and we have these specific questions that we'd like you to address in your proposal. Joy, what did you?
Commissioner Harp? I'm sorry.
I was just going to add that I think if you do have additional questions, it'd be best to decide on what those questions are now and then have them submit them in writing so that everyone can consider them and discuss it that way.
Right. Commissioner Harp?
Can I just get a little more clarification on what the methodology was for calculating the average scores? So it sounds as though there were a significant number of entries that were left blank, and those were entered initially as zeros. Is that correct?
So there wasn't a significant amount. There were 2 commissioners, one of them yourself, who left just the reference part blank. And so if we, I originally, and so in the methodology was just that first we had to convert all the scores because some people used the weight, some people didn't use the weight, some people used it out of 100, some people did it out of 5. So we just had to convert them all to be the same point system. And then so that was a neutral methodology. The number, that's just converting the numbers. The only one that was dependent was the, I believe the reference the reference scores and having those be 0 or 3 if they were left blank. And so it doesn't change the order, it just changes the spread depending on how you look at it, I believe was Audrey's point. So it's not a substantive change. I think either way you can say that, which is what I wrote in my email, you can consider proposal A or proposal B best value because the converse ranking of highest technical, second highest cost, and second lowest cost. You know what I mean? That way, either one of them could be considered best value. Does that answer your question? You're on mute.
Sorry, no, it did not entirely. The question essentially was, right, so as you said, the ordinal rankings are the same, but the spread grew after you did something where you said you substituted a 1 through 5 ranking after you realized that there was a 0 in there for a couple scores after they were ranked at a 3. So I guess I'm not entirely sure what that means or why it is that the numerical score for proposal B increased significantly over A after there was a recalculation that was done.
It could also be.
Well, I mean, you calculated the median as compared to the average, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it just the median.
And yeah, and so we added up all of the scores. So we didn't average them. Is, I think, the different way of saying what Stephanie just said is.
So if there aren't any more questions, or if Randall, Commissioner Harp, do you have more questions on that? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion that we to remove proposal C from deliberation.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so Commissioner Seguino, seconded by Commissioner Gamache. Any discussion? All in favor?
I'm sorry, this is a discussion question. Yep. I mean, I would prefer to couple that in with a substantive proposal on what it is that we're voting on next. So if, for example, we're still waiting on information from proposal A and proposal B, it might turn out, prior to making a vote tonight, it might turn out that there's information that we get from proposal A and proposal B that makes us skeptical of either one of them. And if we've already voted it down C, then that's no longer an option anymore. Right? So if we are still waiting for additional information, I would prefer to not remove C until getting that extra information. But if the idea is that after removing C, we then vote on either A or B tonight, then I'm happy to include that in.
Okay, thank you. I'll leave that if there are folks who feel like we should put together a list of follow-up questions for the group. So is this group going to want to vote on A over B, or is there going to be, as Commissioner Harp is asking, delaying the vote subject to more information, other than the contingency of following up with references? So leaving that aside, but is there a desire to delay the vote until Monday? Yes.
I'll just say personally, I don't feel a need to follow up with additional questions myself.
Okay. Is there anyone who, if Commissioner Grant or Councillor Freeman had raised this, are you comfortable proceeding, or Anyone else, or because this will determine what we do with the pending motion, the motion that's on the table? Commissioner Gamache.
I guess ideally I would like to, I guess maybe get their references now, since seeing we have two front runners. I don't know. I think that probably make most sense before we made a vote on this, but I'm happy to hear dissenting thoughts on that.
Commissioner Harp.
Well, then I would just kind of propose an amendment to the motion, which would be that we eliminate C and vote to recommend either A or B, subject to reference, subject to references and follow up.
Okay, do we have a second to that motion? Okay. Any discussion? Councillor Freeman, you had your hand up before. Okay, so any discussion on that? So now we have to take we're going to have a vote on the amendment to the motion. So do I have all in favor?
Could I just say that it's a friendly amendment? I would say yes, and we don't need to vote on it.
Okay.
Just vote on the motion itself.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll entertain any discussion before we have a motion on Commissioner Harp's. Well, it would be Commissioner Seguino's motion now, amended motion. Do we have any discussion on that, or are we ready to vote? Okay, so all in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, great. So now the discussion is how we proceed with the references. And I don't know if Joy, if you want to weigh in on that, or if Councillor Hightower wants to speak to that.
It might make sense to designate somebody to call the references and then report back on Monday about that.
Chair Hightower?
Sorry, I missed the question. Is it just in terms of, did we have additional questions, or are we just doing a reference check?
So the vote that went through was that C is off the table and that A and B are being forwarded for vote on Monday, subject to reference checks. So the question on the table is, how do we want to go about getting, following up with references?
No.
Commissioner Harp?
I'm sorry, I did not think that was the motion that I was making. I thought that the motion that I was making was that we vote tonight and that the results of that vote be conditional on the follow-up with the references.
Right.
So
that
you vote on A.
Correct. That we vote tonight on either A or B, and then and people check references, and assuming that nothing there leads people to re-vote, then that holds up.
Apparently, I'm the only one who did not get that. So as long as this group, that is the motion. So it sounds like now we are having a motion on A versus. We're going to vote on A versus B.
Vote. Yeah.
I apologize. Okay. Do I have a motion?
I have to admit that I may have made a mistake on the scoring. Audrey, are you on?
I am on. Hi.
Did you just check my scores, or did you independently get the same scores?
I'm sorry?
Did you just check my scores, or did you independently get my scores? And Shannon, I don't know if you did a math check on mine.
I set up to do it in a totally different way. I was ranking them who the number got first, second, and thirds. And then so I used then your system, and then I went back and made the changes that I was doing on my own independently, and found similar ranking, overall results of the same proposals. A and B still got significantly higher scores than proposal C. And by my count, proposal B got a slightly higher score.
Okay. Just because, and Joy, I'll let you, make a call on this, but because I realized I accidentally left out in copying it over and doing the weight transfer, doing the weight calculations in a separate graph, I'd left out one of the commissioners out of the graph completely. And so the way that I have it now, so it's still arbitrary, I realized, which I'm sorry, I did not expect to have to do a lot of math tonight, was that A was actually higher than B, but I assume that's okay.
I thought that's how it was. So
Oh, that is how it was?
that's what I have written down.
No,
No, the first one says B is higher than A by not by much. They're very
19,
close.
that my 3/100%. I'm sorry, then I'm wrong.
Okay, so I don't know what the city's policy is on best value, but I just wanted to flag that. I'm not 100% sure now what the scores are, but it's definitely.
No, you're.
well,
Way that I tallied the score, converted and tallied the scores, I got B higher than A as well by like a little bit, not much at all.
Okay.
Same
so
here.
Chair Hightower raises a good point, which is we haven't even talked about the value and whether, Joy, do you know if that comes into play from a city perspective on proposals?
So you don't have to choose the lowest cost bid, but if you are going to recommend a bid that is not the lowest cost, you have to have a detailed reasoning as to why, essentially.
Okay, and last interruption, I promise. Randall is going to kill me. I keep interjecting. It is now, I do have it the same. It is A,
The same.
slightly lower score than B, but B slightly higher cost. I will leave the discussion again now.
So Joy, if we make that decision, if we, for example, selected B over A, would that be as part of the motion, or how would that decision be conveyed that that's how that was decided? Or
So what I think needs to happen once a decision is made as to which you're going to recommend is that this should be formatted into a resolution for the city council. So you want to make a motion directing my office to draft that, asking the city council to authorize the execution of that contract. And so in that resolution, you'll want to have that information. And that's one other thing that I do want to flag is that we need to have an idea of who you want the council to authorize to execute the contract. So there needs to be an actual person doing the signing. So my thoughts were either Director Green, if she's okay with that, or CAO Shad, or the mayor. You can discuss that as well.
okay, thank you. So we go back to whether there is a motion, whether we put both A and B, or if someone wants to propose that we vote on one of the motions. But is there a motion at this point? Yes.
I think we could just vote, and
Yeah.
then the motion would be that we select a particular proposal.
Okay, so vote before a motion, and then we can propose.
That's one way to do it.
Okay, I mean, I can just put it out there and we'll see a show of hands, or if we want to.
Why don't I call and you can give me A or B?
Okay.
That fine? Okay. Commissioner Hart. Hart.
Oh, Hart.
Yes, ma'am.
B.
Commissioner Gamache.
A.
Commissioner Seguino.
B.
Commissioner Durfee.
A.
Counselor Freeman.
B.
Commissioner Harp.
B.
Commissioner Grant.
B.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 2 for A and 2, 4, 5 for B. So
Okay.
B
Thank
is.
you. So do we have a motion based on those results?
I move
Commissioner
that we adopt proposal B contingent on there being no concerns raised after references are called.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And I'm sorry, I should have said, is there any discussion? Was there any discussion? Okay, well, and
You procedurally need to have a motion about making the resolution to the city council. If you want to do that at this time.
I'm wondering if we do that now or we do that Monday.
I think you can wait until Monday. And maybe make a decision tonight about how you want to check the references as well.
Right. Okay. And I just have to say this. Were there any opposed? Okay. Thank you. So I think that Chair Hightower can join us for a discussion at this point on reference checks and how we want to do that. Does anyone have it in front of them to see how many references they included?
It was like maybe 4 or 6. Go back to it.
We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, and the reality is we've got 2, and it isn't going to be that easy with 2 business days. I don't know if folks feel that anyone wants to volunteer, if we want to split them up, or I'm open to whatever the proposals are for this. Ideally, you have the same person doing it, but I
think the same person should do it so that you have some ability to compare. I would say you don't need to check all of the references. I would just suggest you check 2.
I would email all of them and see who you get a response from.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have anyone who would enjoy that endeavor? Commissioner Durfee?
I would enjoy that endeavor. I would enjoy that.
I'm going to write that in the minutes.
A real one.
The one thing I will ask is, this is what I'm doing here. I mean, if you could just send that via email to me, I will be happy to the reference page. I will do that tomorrow morning.
Okay. All right. Great. So I think Chair Hightower, that does it for my bumbling through this portion of the meeting. And I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
chairing during that. And I actually had to refresh board docs, but I believe that the only other item on our agenda is the next meeting. Is anybody else on board docs? And so we had already had an email discussion about things to put on the agenda, but if anybody has, which at this point would be a report back from Commissioner Durfee on references. I think we're hoping to hear a report back from Chief Murad on the equitable sharing program. We had left one of the meetings with a few questions on what data we could and couldn't get long-term. And I'm hoping we'll get an update on that. And then the RFP, which Commissioner Hart and I were supposed to make edits to. And I believe we can send that out by?
I will be doing that by tomorrow.
Okay, we'll send that out tomorrow evening.
Yep, thank you.
For discussion on Monday. Does that sound good to everyone? And I apologize that this meeting took so long. I definitely thought it was going to be a quick one, and it was not. Great. If there's no other items, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by.
I move that we adjourn.
Seconded by Commissioner Harp. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Great. And we will see most of you on Monday. Thanks so much for.
Have a good night.
Good seeing you, Stephanie.
Yes, good to see everybody.